Put yourself in Jayden Daniels' spot for those last two plays. Would you have run what he ran to give them the opportunity to get the Hail Mary?
I mean, yeah, I think it's a great move and a great thought. Um, anytime you're in that situation where you know that you're not throwing a Hail Mary from that distance. And so, the goal is always, it's like at the end of a half where you come up with a particular play call, and you kind of have aspects to it. You send everybody to the sideline. If they're covering the sideline, I'm dropping back and just throwing it over their head and living for another day, even though we're trying to gain that 5-7 yards to get in better field goal range. I don't know what their play call is there where, we've had that before where we're going up and we're kind of running a Hail Mary in that situation. Like, we're going to do the best that we can because 6 seconds isn't a lot of time. But if you guys come up to the line of scrimmage and there's nobody within 10 or 12 yards of the line of scrimmage, just be ready for the football. And I'm going to flip it out there to you and you're going to catch it and get what you can in a few seconds and get out of bounds and put us in a better situation. So, I think that's something you always talk about. It doesn't come up very often, but I thought it was a great heads up play by Washington to recognize that by the young quarterback and McLaurin to get a completion and put them in a better position to make the last play. And obviously it had a huge effect.
We were impressed with Jayden Daniels yesterday. Want to know what you think of him so far. He obviously has elite scrambling skills, in terms of the history of the league. We're talking about a top 5 or top 10 at the most guy ever as a quarterback, which was evident. But what did you think of him as a decision maker as well?
Well, I mean, I don't know if yesterday was his best game. Obviously, the Bears have a really good defense. But, when you put it as a whole with what he's done here as a rookie this year, I think he's been phenomenal in terms of his decision-making, his playmaking ability. And then what I've loved the most is that he doesn't put the ball in harm's way, is that he's just very, very good and judicious with the ball, that if he doesn't see it and it doesn't seem clear, he tucks it in and makes a play. And, obviously it helps when you have unique ability like he does to elude guys and scramble and do that stuff. But still, it doesn't really matter who they are. We've seen a lot of really good athletes in this league that come in and they want to continue to try to make the play with their arm. And when they don't see it, they try to jam it in and make plays that way. And he just hasn't done it all year long. I mean, he's so good with his decision making that's been the thing that has just wowed me. I mean, I haven't seen a game where he's thrown the ball into harm's way numerous times. It's just been really, really impressive. So you put the whole thing together, and then the fact that he's doing enough to win, and then he's making plays like that yesterday, and you just kind of shake your head like, my gosh, is this for real? Is this who we're going to see for the entirety of his career? If we are, this is going to be a really, really special career because, we've seen guys like Aaron Rodgers that are great decision makers in terms of not turning the ball over and throwing touchdowns. And we've seen, again, like an Aaron Rodgers that's buys time and makes so many plays, off schedule. And now you've got a guy that also has this unique athletic ability to tie to those two things. So, man, it's really been impressive, what he's done week in and week out. And he hasn't really had we call a stinker. He hasn't had one of those bad games where you go, oh, there he is coming back to earth. No, he's been the same guy every single week. And that's really, really impressive for a young guy that's been asked to do as much as he's been asked to do.
On the flip side, for 3.5 quarters, it was a struggle bus for Caleb Williams. What did you see Washington do to get him uncomfortable?
Well, I mean, there weren't a lot of great opportunities for Caleb. I know when you watch a TV copy and you see a quarterback holding it and not really being able to make plays down the field, we automatically want to put it on the quarterback. I just thought they covered, a lot of their concepts really, really well. And there just wasn't a lot of, open big opportunities there. I didn't think Caleb missed a bunch of stuff in this game. I just don't think there was a lot of chances for him. And so, give them credit. I'm not sure, what specific things, there was times that they went press coverage and there wasn't a lot of, open space there. Other times that just the play designs weren't attacking the coverage real well and getting guys open from that perspective. Caleb missed a few things along the way that I thought he could have hit if he was on time and, was really clear with what he was seeing. But I don't think this was by any means just a bad quarterback game. I just think Washington's defense really did a nice job of, slowing down the Bears offense. And it wasn't until they got the run game going late in the game where they were able to make some passes off of it. But it was just, well done, across the board by Washington's defense.
There was some inaccuracy issues for Caleb in the first half, especially throwing the ball behind Rome Odunze once, behind DJ Moore once. There was a little wide receiver screen on the left side to Keenan Allen that was overthrown by a good 4 or 5 yards. And he slid short of the first down marker at one point and copped to that after the game. He looked kind of unsteady. From our naked eye. Did you see any of that and have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, you guys were naked. That's a problem. And what I mean by that is you got to see the big picture is that, the one you were talking to Rome, I agree. He could have made that throw. He was actually looking for the hook underneath it, and he thought he was going to have it. And the linebacker there read it and just came shooting across the tight end's face where he was almost ready to throw it. And this guy comes flashing through there and he tried to recover over the top. And, it was the right decision based off of what he saw. He just didn't really get his feet set again, left the ball behind it. On the screen that I think you're talking about, the one that went 5 yards over Keenan's head, their cornerback did a great job. DJ was out there going to block the cornerback. And as he popped up to throw the screen, the cornerback shot across the line of scrimmage, whereas if he makes the normal throw to the screen, that's picked off and probably goes for sticks. He tries to adjust and flip it up over the top of that corner who had shot that block. And, again, it's kind of a bang-bang play, and he sees it, so he recognized it really well. He just couldn't adjust the throw well enough to kind of drop it over with that touch kind of bubble throw and ends up throwing it too hard. So, again, that's what I mean is that you got to watch the tape and understand the big picture of what's out there and why some of those things happened. And yeah, we'd like to think you can adjust a little bit better and slow yourself down to make a couple of those throws, but they weren't as easy as, oh my gosh, he airmailed that screen by 5 yards. What's he doing? It wasn't as much that as, again, you give credit to Washington for doing a nice job with a couple of those plays where, they just read it and jumped it and forced Caleb to kind of adjust midstream, and he just didn't do it quite well enough.
Wow, a little bit of role reversal here. Usually you're telling me I'm not watching the tape when I say good things about Caleb. Now you're telling me I'm not watching the tape when I say bad things about Caleb.
Well, maybe the bottom line is you need to watch tape.
Oh, look at that. Look at that.
If that's the case, well, I'm just wondering.
Yeah, man, whatever the mighty Kurt Warner says, folks.
Well, Kurt, I want to ask you to kind of follow up on that. So does that tell you that Dan Quinn and Joe Witt Jr. did a really good job of scouting the Bears?
Yeah. That's always a tough one. Like, that's the one thing that I don't do. Maybe you guys do better than me when it comes to watching the tape is like, I can't study a team so much that I fully can get their tendencies down, on a weekly basis because I'm watching all the teams in the league and that sort of thing. So I can't say, oh, they've become predictable, so the defense figured it out. I'm not sure that's the case. I think sometimes, yeah, you're going to have, normal routes that you run, but like say the one to Rome is that they did a nice job of jumping the hook, but Rome was open. So that's kind of the read. If that guy comes down on the hook, you come over the top on the cross to Rome. Now it just, they jumped it so quick that I think it kind of shocked Caleb where he didn't reset his feet and make the throw over the top, even though the right read. The screen, you'll see that happen is that, with all these RPOs that are being run now in the NFL, a lot of people have those just bubble screens and stuff off of their RPOs. And so corners are getting better at kind of when they're in those situations and it's kind of more of a run formation or whatever, they're sitting there looking with their eyes back at the quarterback. So as soon as the quarterback pulls up and looks that direction, they're going to shoot that. So I don't know if it's so much, oh, they knew what the Bears were going to do, as much as it's, this is all over the league. This is how we're going to play it. And if I get a good read, I want to jump it real quick and maybe I get an interception or blow it up or make a tackle behind the line of scrimmage, more than it's, oh, the Bears do this every time they're in this formation. We got to beat on it, and we're ahead of the game in that regard.
When you watch what Shane Waldron does it look cohesive to you? Do the run games look like they match the pass games, or sometimes offensive coordinators can seem like they're sort of play collectors and going through the Rolodex? How cohesive does it look to you?
Yeah, I mean, that's not something that jumps out to me. There are some teams in the league where, they get into a certain formation and you're kind of going, oh, here comes a run, or here they're going to throw it. That hasn't been a thought that's popped into my head watching the Bears on a weekly basis, that, oh, yeah, I know what they're doing.
Mm-hmm.
And again, I'm not studying them to the point where, I'm going back over and over it numerous times to look at, oh, what's the formation for the run? And did they have a pass to connect to it? To me, it's more of a feel. The way I watch the tape is just, do I feel like, when they're coming up in situations or formations, I can tell what they're going to do based on that. And I haven't got that feel from the Bears.
As we look at the Bears now, Kurt, I know that you are locked in with the next thing that you're doing. We're obviously locked into what's happening with the Bears. There's been a lot of guys in the locker room who have been open about what went wrong on plays. They've even named names. They've talked about why they thought Tyreek Stevenson was being disrespectful to the game. I think that it's possible that all of this could end up being good, but from the teams that I've covered, this feels like the beginning of things being bad. How do you make sure that honesty doesn't turn into resentment and fracture a locker room?
Well, I mean, I think the first part of it is you have pros, and you want to make sure you have pros on your team that want to be great. And I think anytime you want to be great, you're happy to listen to things that can help you be great. So that's the first part of it, is, do you have a locker room full of guys that want to be told, that want to be taught, that want to get constructive criticism, as opposed to, want to feel like they have all the answers and they get offended when anybody tells them they do anything wrong. So I think it starts with the perspective of the player and where do they stand. And then the other side of it is, where are the other players coming from? So are the other players, do you know that they've got your best interest in mind? Like, are they saying those things because they want our team to be better, or are they saying those things out of, kind of a selfish, like, oh, it's the defense's fault, oh, it's this guy's fault, instead of taking ownership themselves? So one thing I've always felt was accountability by the individual is always key. So, for example, when I would go into a film room, one of the natural human things to do is to try to excuse away the mistakes that you make. So, you watch the film and you watch the film after the fact, and then you kind of talk yourself into, well, maybe I did that or made that decision because this guy was a little short on his route, or this guy was, did this or whatever. And, I learned really early on, like, that's not going to make anybody better. It's going to make you feel better for 5 minutes because you're excusing yourself to everybody else. But you know the truth. You know why you threw that. You know what your decision was. And it might have been a bad decision. Take accountability. Stand up in front of the room and go, hey, that one's on me, guys. I was thinking this, or tell your coach that. And what that normally does is it eludes accountability from other people. Oh, wow. Kurt's, telling us when he makes the mistake. Now I can, take accountability for my mistake. Or when Kurt calls me out for a mistake, I'm going to be more accepting to that mistake because I understand he just wants to get it right. He wants to get it right when he makes a mistake. He wants to get it right when I make a mistake. And so we are in this together. Todd Haley was my offense coordinator when I was here. And, he got known for having this fiery personality, and he would get on people. And, my kids, even to this day, That's the one interaction they remember because I was very calm and level-headed on the sideline. But they always point that out. Hey, remember that time with Todd Haley when you got in his face and you were screaming and yelling at him? You remember that, Dad? And so they want to make that quite often about Todd and his, personality and what he elicited in different people. But what I always loved about Todd was even when he got on me and coached me hard and we had those interactions, I always knew that Todd wanted me to be great. And Todd wanted to push us to be great. So because I knew that, yeah, it would still lead to fiery interaction at times on the field when we're competing and we're having those moments, but it never carried over anywhere else other than, hey, I appreciate you coaching me hard. I appreciate you getting on me and pushing me because you know what I'm capable of and you want us to be great. And I knew that from him. So I was never offended and I never pointed the finger and I never went to my kids and, hey, that was all about Todd Haley. You shouldn't. No, I was like, I respected it because he was willing to challenge me. Even a guy that won a couple, MVPs and gone to a number of Super Bowls, he wasn't afraid to coach me and challenge me in different instances. Times I was wrong, times he was wrong, but I appreciated that about him. So when you talk about the locker room, if I know somebody has my best interest in mind, whether it's a coach or a player, and they're calling me out and challenging me to be better, I'm going to go try to be better. I'm not looking to point the finger back and go, well, what about the play that you did this? No, I understand where their heart is and where the direction of that comment comes from. And that to me is what makes a healthy locker room and what allows teams to grow and become better is knowing I'm going to hold myself accountable, A, and B, I know that my teammates only want the best for me. And that makes a healthy locker room, in my opinion.
Great stuff from a wealth of experience in the Hall of Famer's career. Let's hope it turns that way. Thanks so much, Kurt. We'll talk to you next week.
Sounds good, guys.
All right, that's Kurt Warner joining us here on the Spiegel and Holmes Show. All right, phone lines are open. We'll talk to Mark Grody at 4 o'clock, and you'll hear from Tyreek Stevenson and Kevin Byard and Cole Kmet with some impactful stuff. But right now, we want to hear from you at 312-644-6767.